So much to talk about. The terrorist attack in Manchester, England, the political impact of President Trump's Middle Eastern tour, and of course, Melania Trump coming out as a Roman Catholic. I am Randall Terry. This is Voice of Resistance. Welcome to the program, friend. I am now back home from a trip to Omaha. I spoke briefly at an event where Dr. Mark Christian, who is a former Muslim imam from Egypt, he lives there, and he hosted a pro-Israel event. I had the privilege of interviewing former Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann. I interviewed a retired general from the Israeli Defense Forces who was just a mensch. We will play those two interviews sometime next week. But it was so profound to see this man, Dr. Mark Christian, who's an Egyptian, former Muslim Brotherhood. His dad fought against Israel in 2 wars. His dad tried to kill him. To see him as a Christian, having an event in support of Israel, it was really something. About 400 people there. So I'll bring you up to speed on that when we show you the interviews sometime next week. So that's why on Monday we shot 3 shows, and then, as you know, there was a terrorist attack. I apologize for being a little bit behind the curve. The horror of this is something that we must not get accustomed to. That is one of my greatest concerns. I believe it was John Kerry who in effect said, look, we just have to accept the fact that Muslim terrorism is here to stay and we need to treat it like a nuisance. No, it's not a nuisance, it's murder. And it is a part of the very ideology of Islam. None are as blind as the willfully blind. Muhammad said that he had been given superiority over the other prophets because he was made victorious by terror. Now, the root word for terrorism is terror. And if you look up the word terror in the Hadith and in the Quran, you will see it used repeatedly. Terror, Muhammad said specifically, was the reason he had been victorious in establishing Islam. His own words. So when we see attacks like this, we have to understand that the Muslim terrorists are following the example and the ideology and the principles and the practices laid down by Muhammad himself. Now, what is so disturbing to me, and it's becoming a source of real a wrestling in my heart. Please God forgive me, but it's just bitterness toward the press, because members of the media are either too lazy, or too stupid, or too ideologically opposed to Christianity to just do the simple homework. In other words, 20 years ago, 40 years ago, you would have had to have bought like books you see behind me. And you would have to be reading through thousands of pages. Now you can go online and with a search engine in the Hadith or in the Quran, and you can just plug in the word terror. See for yourself, terror. So the media is either too stupid, too lazy, or too ideologically committed to opposition to Christianity to just do their homework. And it's offensive. It's disgusting. Now we're seeing people say, well, maybe Islam needs a reformation. First of all, at least that means that somebody's paying a little attention and that there might be a problem inherent in Islam. If you have to reform something, that means it's in need of reformation, that there's something wrong, something intrinsically out of whack. So it's a discussion worth having for about a minute, because at least in that minute, you could identify, well, what are some of the key areas of Islam that you think might need to be reformed? Oh, jihad? Having sex slaves? Interesting. Well, let me tell you why that falls apart fast and furious right after this break. Don't go away. Have Muslim terrorists hijacked the peaceful religion of Islam? Or is there more to the story? The answer lies in the life of one man, Muhammad, the founder of Islam. Muslim terrorists see themselves inside a 1,400-year-old story, a narrative that focuses on specific events in the life of Muhammad. We are going to look at Muhammad's life using their most sacred literature. We will look at Muhammad at the Battle of Badr. We'll see him deal with those who mock him. We'll see the times when he used deception. We'll witness Muhammad's anti-Semitism. And yes, we will discuss Muhammad and his teachings concerning sex, slavery, and jihad. Friend, if you want to understand Islamic terrorism, get this series today. Welcome back to the program, friend. I'm going to read to you in a second one passage from the Quran and two passages from the Hadith where Muhammad talks about the use of fighting, jihad, terror to establish Islam. This is Islam. Now, there is a discussion that has begun to percolate a little bit, and that's about reforming Islam. Sounds like a good idea, right? Here's the problem. How do you reform something that is perfect? Muhammad said that God told him, Allah told him, quote, "This day I have perfected your religion for you." Close quote. Now, that perfection came after the implementation of jihad, after Muhammad started ordering people to be killed. So once Muhammad made that turn from the peaceful preacher in Mecca to the violent warlord in Medina, that's when God said, I've perfected it. This is it. In other words, we now have sex slaves. We now have decapitations. We now have the use of terror. And then God says to Muhammad, allegedly, that God, trust me, God did not say it. Nor did the angel Gabriel deliver it. But the quote, the delusion is, "This day I have perfected thy religion." How can you reform perfection? So-called Muslim intellectuals who have tried to separate the belief in the unity of God and that Muhammad was a prophet of God. In other words, the indivisible unity of God. God is not Father. God is not Mother. God is not a Son. There's no Trinity. God is God alone. So they're saying, let's just have that belief in God. We'll have our prayers 5 times a day. We'll have our month of fasting. We'll have our poor tax, or we give to the poor. We'll have our declaration of faith, the Shahada. But this business of Sharia law and jihad, let's separate ourselves from that. The apostasy laws, killing people who leave Islam, let's get rid of that. Guess what happened to more than one of those people? They were murdered. Because implicit in that statement, in that suggestion, is that Islam is not perfect and that Muhammad was, in fact, lying or was committing sins. In other words, if Muhammad said that God told him the rules for raping captive women, which it's in the Quran, okay? If Muhammad says, this is what God showed me, and then people say, you know, let's not have that. Well, wait a minute. Did God tell Muhammad or not? If God told Muhammad, then the end. God's not going to change his mind. So implicit in the discussion to reform Islam is the notion that Muhammad got some things radically wrong and that maybe he wasn't even a good man. And see, then the whole system falls apart. All right, let me read to you 3 quotes and we'll move on to other news. This is from the Quran. Against them, the infidels, make ready your strength to the utmost of your power, including steeds of war, to strike terror into the hearts of the enemies of Allah and your enemies and others besides, whom you may not know, but whom Allah doth know. This is demonic genius. Do you understand the purpose of terrorism is for the living, not for the dead? Murder is for the dead. I want to kill this person, and so now they're dead. Terror is, I'm going to kill this person or torture these people here so that the other people who are watching change their behavior. Listen to this one. Fight in the name of Allah and in the way of Allah. Fight against those who disbelieve in Allah. Make a holy war. When you meet your enemies, invite them to 3 courses of action. Invite them to accept Islam. If they respond to you, accept it from them and desist from fighting against them. That's the purpose of the fighting, the jihad, the terror, is to convert them to Islam. And then it says, if they refuse to accept Islam, demand from them the non-payment tax, the jizya. All right, so if you won't become Muslims, we're gonna let you pay us protection money. So it's like a mafia scheme. Pay us protection money. If they agree to pay, accept it from them and hold off your hands. If they refuse to pay the tax, seek Allah's help and fight them. All right, I've got to take a break. When we come back, the crowning quote from Muhammad regarding his use of terror. For those of you who are political activists, I have 2 books that are must-reads for you, and you need them in your library. 1, The Book That Made America, How the Bible Formed Our Nation, and 2, Confrontational Politics. I love both of these books. The book by Jerry Newcomb comes highly recommended by Ann Coulter. It gives you the ammunition so that you can say and see for yourself that the Bible was indeed the foundation of this republic. We weren't built to be a secular nation. We were built to be a God-fearing nation on the principles of Christianity as laid out in the scriptures. And confrontational politics, this puts to rest forever the lie that we should be nicer than Jesus when it comes to political activism. If we're going to win, we have to be confrontational. Only $25 for both books. Call 304-289-3700. That's 304-289-3700. Welcome back, friend. In a moment, I'm going to play a small clip of my interview with Michelle Bachmann, and we'll play the whole interview next week sometime. Muhammad said, I'm a prophet of himself. Said, I'm a prophet, and I'm in the line of prophets, and I'm the greatest prophet. And then, people started to say, well, I don't remember Jesus killing people. I don't remember John the Baptist killing people. And Muhammad said, well, God, here's what God showed me. I'm going to listen to this quote. I have been given superiority over the other prophets. I have been made victorious with terror cast into the hearts of the enemy. Spoils have been made lawful to me. There's the references. Go look up the references for yourself. Now, spoils are theft, right? So Jesus, he didn't put a gun to people's head. He didn't tell his apostles to go rape, pillage, steal. And Muhammad knew this. So he said, well, I've been given superiority. I'm more important. And I've been made victorious not through preaching. No, I've been made victorious in my implementation of Islam, my establishing of Islam. I've been made victorious, quote, with terror cast in the heart of the enemy. So if I say, Muhammad said I'm going to use terror, what would that make him? Yeah, do the math. So now I'm the villain because I'm quoting Muhammad? I mean, think about it. This is what is so disgusting and criminal about the secular media and about the State Department. Our foreign government officials, those who are taxed as servants in government to deal with national security, foreign relations, diplomacy, border control, immigration. It's obscene what is going on with these kind of facts right on the table in front of everyone. All right, let me play a quick little clip from my interview with Michelle Bachmann.
I do. I sat on the Intelligence Committee in the United States government, and our basket, if you will, was the classified secrets of the United States. Primarily, we dealt with terrorism, and it is Islamic-based terrorism. There really virtually wasn't any other kind of terrorism. That's what we dealt with. And I saw and felt a noticeable shift during my years on the intelligence community. We were going along, and then all of a sudden, there was a quantum leap, and we took a Mach turn in intensity. I think we have taken another quantum leap since that point. Just again, as you and I are talking right now tonight, there was an Islamic terror attack last evening in Manchester, England. 22 so far have been killed, and in excess of 50 people have been wounded, perhaps even more than that. So we are continually seeing Islamic terror. We almost get numb to it at this point, because there's always been Islamic terror in the Muslim worlds. Because President Trump was correct when he said in his remarks in Saudi Arabia that it's actually more Muslims are killed and wounded by Islamic terror than anyone else. However, as we are seeing Muslims move out of the Middle East, where primarily we saw terrorist activities contained for most of my lifetime, now we've seen more and more through the greatest migration shift in our time, in our lifetime, and it's been primarily Muslims who have been doing the migrating. As Muslims have been migrating to Western European nations and also to Canada, to North America, to the United States, now we're seeing also the rise of Islamic terrorism in Western Europe and here in the United States as well. And that's only escalating with more people coming from a pro-Islamic Sharia law background. That's really the criteria. If people believe in the fundamental foundation of Islamic Sharia law, when they land on American soil, one thing that we're seeing that's very sad is that when people land on American soil with that background, if they don't transfer their allegiance to American constitutional law, then by definition, their allegiance remains with Islamic Sharia law.
Well, we start off just discussing Muslim terrorism, and then she knew more about Muhammad than anyone I've ever interviewed or spoken to. Now, it is a massive deal that Melania Trump has just come out as a Catholic. And I'm going to tell you why right after this break. What Would Muhammad Do? Islamic Terrorism Explained is the best movie series documentary ever produced on the life of Muhammad and Islam. How do I know? Because it's what critics are saying. John Moore, radio host and author, said, "I learned more from What Would Muhammad Do about Islam and Islamic terrorism than I've learned from everything I ever read and watched in my entire life." Best-selling author Dr. Bill Warner said, "What Would Muhammad Do is the best movie series, TV production on the life of Muhammad and Islamic terrorism that has ever been produced." Friends, this is what the experts are saying. No one has ever done what we've done. I encourage you to get 1, 2, 4 copies. Call 304-289-3700. That's 304-289-3700, or order it at the address or the website that you see on the screen. Friend, we have a series that will help you and those you love to have an impact on this country. It's called Insurrecta Nex. That's Latin for revolution against the killing of innocent people. This is the history, the philosophy, and the theology of social revolution in America. We look at the Stamp Act, the Boston Tea Party, the abolition of slavery, the abolition of child labor, women's voting rights, the civil rights movement. All of them have this in common: courage, sacrifice, dedication, and in-your-face tactics and rhetoric. That's one of the reasons that we've been losing the culture wars the last 40 years, is because the bad guys are using these tactics and we aren't. We will send you this 14-part TV series along with these manuals for students, a teacher's facilitator guide for only $40. Go to 304-289-3700, 304-289-3700. The spokeswoman for Melania Trump, the First Lady of the United States, has in fact confirmed that Melania Trump is Roman Catholic. Now, as of this taping, we don't know when she became Catholic. We don't know when she was baptized, because evidently she wasn't baptized as a child. Her dad was communist. So it's wonderful. I mean, what a wonderful, pleasant shock. And someone was asking me, why is this such a big deal? I said, okay, listen. There were times in American history, ready? It was against the law for Catholics in some states to vote. It was against the law for them to hold public office. And the reason is this was clearly founded as a Protestant country, and some of the founders of this republic and the people that helped establish our several state governments believed that a Catholic, by definition, had a loyalty to a foreign government, i.e. the Vatican. And so when John F. Kennedy was running for president, who was the first and only Catholic to be elected president, when John F. Kennedy was running for president, he said that he would not take any dictates from the Vatican. He actually had to make it a part of his public persona that, yes, I'm Catholic, but that's my personal faith, and y'all don't have to worry. I'll be the president of the United States. I'm not going to be the puppet of the Pope or the puppet of the Vatican. In effect, that's what he was saying. And our history as a nation, there's parts, not all, but there are parts of American history where people were clearly, some people maniacally anti-Catholic. So Melania Trump will represent the second Catholic woman to live in the White House. First Lady of John F. Kennedy was, his wife, John F. Kennedy's wife, was the first Catholic woman to be in the White House. Melania Trump be the second. And there you go. There it is. But we can only hope that as a woman in her 40s, who we hope takes her Catholic faith seriously, that she will be contradicting, say, Ivanka, President Trump's daughter. If Ivanka is saying keep funding Planned Parenthood, clearly Melania has the ear of her husband, and we can only hope that the elements of the Catholic faith that are dogma, okay? It is dogma that you shall not murder, and abortion is murder. That's dogma. That'll never change. It's dogma that marriage is between one man and one woman. Not two men, not two women. That's dogma. So I can only hope that Melania's conversion to Catholicism, whenever it took place, is one that is real. So we'll keep you posted as we find out more details over the coming weeks and months. And at this point, Melania and their youngest son, her son, they are intending to move into the White House sometime this summer. So this horrific terror attack, and now President Trump meeting in Brussels, he's meeting with various heads of state. Friend, this you can see the almost nonstop barrage from the frenzied media, the anti-Trump media. And I want you to grasp something, okay? Everybody in the world, every human being has sin in their life. Every person in the world has errors in judgment from time to time, unless they're like a super saint, but just the general populace. So when we elect a president, he is by definition, or she, if we ever have a woman president, but he is by definition a flawed man who will make mistakes. Some flawed men are better in front of a camera than others. Some flawed men aren't just flawed, they're wicked, they're evildoers. So take President Obama, former President Obama. He was an evildoer. He was an evil man. He said if one of his daughters got pregnant, he would want her to have an abortion. He would want his own grandchild dead. That's evil. That's sick. It's perverse. So right now, President Trump is trying to get the nation to go in the right direction. And the frenzied attacks against him are not because he is a bad man. It's because of the direction he wants to take the country. This is an ethical battle, and President Trump is caught in the crosshairs. You and I need to fight for the side of right publicly, without fear, without embarrassment. See you soon.